Welcome to the DMF podcast, where you will get to hear conversations with community leaders, charity spotlights, and information on upcoming DMF events. I'm your host, Whitney Isaacson, and for this episode, we have a special DMF podcast takeover with our executive director, Pat Traynor. He sat down with retired NDSU men's basketball head coach, Erv Inniger. This episode is full of lots of inspiration and insights. We hope you enjoy. Let's get into it.
Hello, everyone. This is Pat Traynor with Dakota Medical Foundation, and today we have a special guest on the DMF podcast, and his name is Erv Inniger. And Erv, I've known you for many years. We're going to have a great conversation today. I'm sure we'll lose track of time because we'll have so much fun, and like we did earlier today. And I've gotten to know Erv for actually for many years now, and we've really worked closely for the last 3 or 4. And Erv, you do some special work for DMF and for Impact Foundation. You really have, I think, the best job here. You get to go out and hang out with all these wonderful people that run and guide charities, that fundraise for charities. But what I wanted to do in this interview today is I wanted to sort of give our audience sort of the background of Erv Inniger, you know, like where so we're just going to start, you know, like where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? When did you start your basketball career? You became a legendary coach at NDSU. And I want the audience to really understand, you know, who is Erv Inniger? You know, you're a family man, you're a Christian man, you have a wonderful family, you're a super father. And, you know, I think we are, you know, based on our experiences, that's who we become. And then that's where, you know, we're guided. What are we guided by? So this will be a great interview. I'm super excited. I prepared for it last night, but I thought really, let's just start out with what shaped you, you know, your early years, then your, you know, sort of your, earning years. You know, we learn at the beginning, and then we earn, and now you're really, of course, you've been returning all the time, you know, when we think learning, earning, and returning. So can we start out with your educational background and then your career?
You bet, Pat. Nice to be with you, and I have so many great things to talk about with Impact and Dakota Medical Foundation. It's been an honor. I mean, I look back at 12 years ago, you kind of came to me and I kind of put off, I was doing other things. But the last 4 years have been just really such a passion, and also something that I've just really grown myself. So, but you kind of explained everything for me almost there.
Well, that might happen.
But no, I grew up in Indiana, and very honestly, I know people think that this is kind of goofy, but I remember when I was less than 10 years of age and playing out in the playgrounds, basketball, I wanted to be a coach. And I wanted to be a professional player. And so, I mean, and that was my goal from probably less than 10 years of age and all the way through.
Wow.
So I was very fortunate to be in a small town called Bern, Indiana. It's named after Bern, Switzerland. In fact, it's on my license plate in my car.
It is. And I thought it was Bernie.
Yeah, I know. It's Bern, Indiana. And I think what you do is when you grow up, it sets the stage. It sets a foundation for your life. I had great parents that really pushed me and helped me grow as a person. And then I had people in our community that I've actually gone back and thanked for what they did for me to set a great foundation for my life. And then I was fortunate enough to play in junior high. We were 67-0 in basketball. Wow. And then in high school, we were 67-12. And we went as far as we could in Indiana. They only had one session. So I played basketball. I was fortunate enough to have a good career in high school, and Indiana University recruited me. I had, actually, I only had basically one good year. I think it's a lesson that really taught me a lot. Freshmen weren't allowed to play back then. And then as a sophomore, I got to watch the Van Arsdale twins and John McLaughlin, who all played in the NBA.
Yes.
And you get to watch. You'd always hope that they get a 30-point lead so you could get in the game. So
sure.
That was and then my junior year, I was up and down. And so it wasn't, and we were last place in the Big Ten.
Yep.
My senior year, we won the Big Ten.
Wow.
And so I have a ring that I wear very proudly that I have for years. But, and then I was really fortunate because I thought I also played baseball at Indiana University. And I always thought I'd play pro baseball. Well, I threw my arm out my junior year. I had a good sophomore year. And then basketball came along, and then guess what? Pro went into, just like the NFL did, they went to an NFL and an AFL. Well, basketball split in an ABA and NBA. And that was the first year, and I was drafted 6th round and got up to Minnesota. That's how I got up into this area. I mean, most people move south. I moved north. And so I had an opportunity to play 2 years of professional basketball. Their service was calling me. So I basically, what happened is that Vietnam was very hot, and I had to go in. I had a great first year. I averaged double figures in the NBA or ABA. We merged with the NBA. And then I got called into service. So I did 6 years in the reserves, but I really never got a chance to play.
So the service interrupted your professional basketball career?
It interrupted my career. And I met my wife, and we moved to Miami. And as soon as my career over, I didn't get to play much that second year. And I said, I'm done. So I moved back to Minneapolis, and I literally walked the streets to get a job. I wanted to coach. And I was at a Twins game, sitting next to an athletic director at Golden Valley Lutheran. I mean, you talk about the Holy Spirit working in your life.
Yes.
I went to the high schools, and the high schools didn't want to hire me. How's that?
Yeah.
And so basically, I go out and sit next to the Twins, and this guy. And when I go to a game, I'm not company. I'm really engrossed in.
You're in it.
I'm focused. And so basically, I sit next to this athletic director. Didn't even ask him his name. That's not usually like me, but he bugged me the whole game. I thought, oh my gosh. Monday, he calls me. He says, I got a job opening. This is August. And he said, I have an opening at a junior college. He said, would you come out and look at it? He hired me on the spot. And he hadn't even looked at my credentials. He didn't even know if I graduated.
This is an amazing story.
I mean, and again, it goes to me, being faith,
yes.
Kind of faith basis, the Holy Spirit kind of just takes you places that you don't think you can even go. And so I had 4 good years at Golden Valley Lutheran, and the coach at Augsburg College left, and I had gone out and recruited kids and got to know the athletic director and some of the people over at Augsburg College, and they hired me.
They recruited you.
Yeah, I mean, I was the only one they interviewed. I mean, so again, so I'm 5 years there, and this is the biggest story of all, is that Linda and I bought a house that she had a dream. It was at the end of a cul-de-sac. It was her dream house, and people in our church left her dream house. And as we were painting the walls, I said, by the way, I've applied for 3 jobs. And she looked at me like, we're painting this. And I said, don't worry, I won't get it. And one of them was NDSU, obviously. And we came up here, and I was one of the 3 finalists. And I said, yeah, I don't know if I'll get it or not. Well, Aide Sponberg was the athletic director. He called me and says, Erv, we'd like to hire you. And I thought my wife says, she was an Air Force brat, and she actually her dad was stationed in Minot. And she says to me, she said, there's one word that comes to my mind when I lived in North Dakota. Wind. And so the rest of it, I come up here and I start coaching, and I coached for 14 years, and I felt like I was very involved in the community and did some things. And after I got out of that, I went basically into fundraising. That's how I really got into fundraising, although I did a lot of promotions with the basketball program. We had 950 kids on Saturday mornings that we had our players coach. I mean, it teach them the fundamentals. And so we did a lot of that. And so when I got into the fundraising aspect of it in my life, basically, that's when it really all started. But I went back to all the people when I was coaching that helped me, like the Shelley Elligs. There's so many different people that I worked with back then that I could go to now. I had some great friends. And I just got started into fundraising, and I also ran for city commission. I was fortunate enough to have 2 terms there. And so that's kind of my background. And then there's a guy by the name of Pat Traynor came to see me and said, hey, I think we could do this. And so we started experimenting 4 years ago with some things. And this has grown now too. And it's become a real passion, because what I think about work and life is that your work should not be work. It should be something you just enjoy. I mean, this isn't work to me. When I get to work with all these charities and see the people I get to work with out here at DMF and Impact, it's such a pleasure because you walk in here and it's positive. I think we have so much negativism in our world today that we need to be a light. And I think when we can help other people and work with other people, and you surround yourself with good people, and guess what? A lot of good things happen.
There is no question that is true. And as a side note, when Erv comes into the DMF and Impact offices, everyone, immediately turns with a smile. And partially because you hear him before you see him, because of the Erv is always visiting and happy and making fun of people, and there is really a trail of goodness, that comes, and joy and fun, and you've really hit, this kind of segues us into what exactly you're doing. Just if you were to describe it like with one or two charities, what exactly are you doing to help them reach more of their potential? Because you think about, I think about all the challenges that face us. There's fear of this, there's fear of that, fear of rejection when you're fundraising, there's fear of the economy, there's so much to be focused on that's negative. One thing I think sets you apart is, why not focus on having a positive attitude and focus on what we can be optimistic about and how kind and generous these donors are? So tell us a little bit more specifically about what you're doing with a charity or two. And you don't have to say their name, but just sort of the things that you're doing to help them reach more of their potential to serve, and how you really talk about what's the most important thing, in terms of the role. So can you take a little bit here, and then maybe I'll give you another 30 minutes to talk here today, Erv? We're having fun today.
Oh, this is a ball. I mean, I just think of the fun things you have in life. And if you look at life and have fun, and it changes your life. And guess what? I mean, I think one of the things I preach constantly, we choose our own attitude every day.
Yes.
So when you come in here, you can come in here and be down. You can come in here, can be negative, but we choose it. And you can't let anybody change that attitude of yours if you have a positive attitude, unless you let them. Not your spouse, not your kids, not your coach, not your pastor. No, none of those people can be changed. And so I say we choose it. So choose it wisely. And yeah, do I have some bad days? Very few bad days, but I do have one once in a while. And I actually talk to myself, and that people think, boy, he's weird. And I probably am. But I talk to myself, no, pick yourself back up, because you're influencing somebody else's life. And you don't know who the person is that is struggling in life. I can remember being not only like here, but when I was on the bank board over at Choice, basically what I did is I'd go around to almost every employee every morning, and I'd say hello. You'd pretty soon find out, hey, I see someone that's hurting today. You know why? Because you paid attention to them.
Yep.
And I say, we don't pay attention to people. And so that's the greatest thing. But when you gave me the charities several years ago, I usually get 20 to 25 charities. And basically all the things I'm going to talk about today are things that I learned from them. I mean, I know that we can talk a lot about other things, but I can pass a lot along things because you might call it consulting out here, but you call it coaching. Because as a coach, my objective when I had players was to push them as far and use their abilities as much as I possibly could. And that's basically what I'm doing with the charities, because they don't see their potential a lot of times. And when I come in and talk to a charity, the first thing I tell them is, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to suggest some things.
Yes.
Tell me what you're doing. Let's see if we can't expand on those things and see if we can't make it better. Because I feel like when I talk to these charities, the first thing I ask them, tell me the most important thing in your charity. And they'll tell me, oh, it's this, it's that. And I said, no, it's not. It's money. I said, you can't run your charity without money. And so many times push it off. I have so many charities that I've worked with it that really kind of upset me a little bit because they have 5% of their time they can devote to fundraising. Well, you're not going to make it very long. And those charities are doing phenomenal work. It hurts me to see the charities that I go to and the 25 charities that I have. It hurts me to feel that I can't do even enough for them because I see the work that they're doing, and it's powerful. But one of the things that I ask each charity to do, which is not easy, is I ask them to make 7 phone calls a day. And I said, all I want you to do is call out there and of all the donors you have and say thank you. Say thank you. And I said, so I call out and let's say I'm working with such and such charity. And I said, I'm calling on behalf of this charity today. And I want you to know that we are so appreciative of you. I'm not calling for any other reason than just to say thank you. Now, 9 out of 10 phone calls will be a voicemail. When I talk to my donors, and you've been with me when I've talked to the donors, I ask them, what's the thing that you appreciate more of all the things? Is it a text? Is it a letter? Is it an email? Is it whatever? A phone call, because they all listen to it. These letters get so long sometimes, or what they hate, and I'm telling them right now, what they hate is a form letter.
Yeah, for sure.
Terrible.
Sure.
And so, because they said, well, I'm not that important to you. Because all you're doing is say, hey, dear Pat. And then down they sign it. And then everything else in there is a form.
It's a transaction.
Doesn't like it.
Feels like a transaction.
So that's one of the things I really have pounded on more than anything. The second thing I pound on is their goals. They set their goals way too low. I mean, I go out to a charity a couple of years ago, and again, this is a lesson I learned.
Yes.
And I go out and I said, okay, I'm fortunate enough that I have great people to work with, like Jessica here, and she gives me the list of all these things and how much they made last year in Giving Hearts Day, or how much they've received. And so I go out to this charity, and I said, so what do you? And I knew ahead of time, and they were honest with me. They said, well, $48,000. I said, well, that was good. I said, well, what's your goal this year? 50. I said, all you're trying to do right now is make your goal. I'm interested in you in stretching your goal. And I said, why would a donor want to give you any more money when you're not even working hard enough to expand it? So I said, let's go to $75,000. Let's go to 75. And I said, so let's say you get 55 or 60,000. Did you lose? They're helping people.
Right.
I mean, that's
so important.
I mean, they're out there, they're stretching it, they're helping people. And so they went to 75. This is an actual one. They went to 75. They got 68,000. I said, did you lose? No.
Never.
You didn't. You don't lose, because now you're expanding all the number of people you can help, which is phenomenal.
Yes.
I mean, I think those are the things, Pat, that I see over and over again, that they don't have enough confidence in themselves sometimes. And some of them don't have the experience. I mean, I've been in fundraising 40 some years. So I can take them certain ways to see that. And the results I've seen has been unbelievable, because I've seen it. I had one charity that I worked with that was $90,000 in the hole with 2 months to go. And I suggested a few things for them. Now, they had an event coming, but they weren't even going to get close to that. And when they ended the year, when they took the advice, when they ended the year, they raised $150,000. They were 90 in the hole. And so basically, it wasn't Erv Inniger. It was them working. Fundraising is not easy. It's a number of people you have, paying attention to your people and getting on top of it. But I go out, and this is what's really fun for me. Once in a while, I'll take a donor out with me. We go out. So I go out to this place, and I have two places. One, I took a donor out, and I said, let's go this place. Let's go have lunch. And we go over to, actually, I'll tell you where we went to the jails at Chaplains.
Yes.
I sit down, and I said, and I tell them, you can't ask money. I'm telling these people that are charities, you can't ask money, because I said, I don't want to ruin my reputation with them, or you're taking me just so you're giving. I said, let them see what you're doing. So I go over there, we have lunch, and the director comes over and says to the guy, just in a nice conversation, the sheriff's talking to him and a bunch of people, and they come up to him. It's so funny, because he's getting involved in it. And he sits there and he says, well, tell me what your needs are. And the lady told him what the needs were. And he wrote out a check for 20% of it without asking. So what you got to do is the donors have to bring to people and let them see what you're doing. They have passion for it once they see it. I did it again. I went out to see this other group. And once they saw it, it was for special needs kids. Immediately, another check was written. So, when you're looking at it, these are the things that that I try to encourage them to do. And then I also do one other thing. Is every morning, if the charities want, I send out a paragraph to everybody, and it has to be uplifting. It always ends in scripture, but it always has to be uplifting to make sure that they know from here, basically, it's coming from here, is that you're supported, you're loved, you're cared for, and you get an opportunity here to believe in yourself. If you've got a down day, that's what my hope is, that this little message will do it. The last thing I'll say before because I can go all sorts of different ways, but you really, these people sometimes, again, just don't believe in themselves enough. And that's just disheartening to me, because I said, you're just helping so many people that you got to be feeling good about what you are doing.
Totally. I want to hit 2 points. Great message, Erv. And I think our listeners can really see why you were a great winning coach. You were a very, very successful coach. You were a very successful fundraiser, and we call it friend raising. Mm-hmm. And it's so important, by the way, to create relationships, and the relationships and the feeling and the sense of joy in being a part of a mission that's bigger than ourselves as a donor, that we're not a transaction as a donor. We're actually part of the mission, and we get to experience the joy of the mission. And I think that's part of our message to charities. And your message is, look, have them experience the joy in the giving. There's multiple ways to do that. And one way is to show them what you're doing. So if it were jail chaplains, which was your example today, that's going down and saying, wow, how are jail chaplains bringing Jesus into the jails to give these convicts hope in their future? Because with no hope, we all perish with no hope. And so that's a group of people that society has sort of left, and said, we're done with you. And we don't want to do that. We want to say, what can we do to help you find joy in and meaning in their life? And so bringing a donor there, they get to say, wow, we're dealing with people in society that don't have hope. We're giving them hope. We're being a part of giving them hope. And what you're teaching the charities is, look, you have the most important job in the charity, because you can't do what you're doing without money. and so I see, the joy. Can you just hit on the donors, joy in that, and how, this is what you're bringing to these charities by helping them see that they need to realize that they have a very, very important role in building long-term relationships and making sure that they experience that. Because what does Erv bring a donor joy?
Well, I think more than anything else is knowing that what they're doing and what they're giving is going to the right for the right reasons, to the right things that they're wanting to see.
Yes.
And very honestly, no matter what, all these charities are just wonderful. I mean, more than wonderful. I just can't say enough good things about what's going on in our community. And nobody has even a clue of how many great charities there are. But I was actually with a donor a couple weeks ago, and it was really sad, because he was telling me that basically I'm kind of losing my joy in giving. And I said, well, tell me about this, because what I try to do is I try to interview donors so I know when I come into a charity what they like,
yes,
and what they dislike.
So important.
It is so important. And we're going to have a major session here on what donors are going to give us feedback right now on what from what are all our charities. Our charities have asked questions to donors, and they can ask why they give. I'm not interested. I'm at the deeper side of that.
Yes.
But he said to me, I'm losing joy. And I said, well, tell me why you're losing joy. He says, I'm losing joy because I've given to this charity for 15 years, and they expect it every now. And I think that's a major point in what we're talking about today. Don't expect it for some of the joys. And I have had 2 charities that I have just talked to recently that got major gifts and never got a thank you.
Yeah, unacceptable.
Now, if you want to lose it, there's the joy that's going out. Because if a donor's given to you, he's got a passion for what you're doing. He believes in what you're doing. He wants to help you. Yeah. And that's what you do. When you get people that want to do it, you look forward to it.
Yeah. And expressing gratitude is the number one thing that we teach. and there's many ways to do it, even a voicemail, right?
Totally. I mean, I'm a firm believer that we don't answer our phone unless we know who's calling us anymore today. And so basically, I'm going to go back to the people that I talk to. And I want those 7 phone calls that I'm asking the charities to make is all they're doing is thanking them. I mean, right now, that's all. Because in January and February, guess what? It switches around when now we're going to ask for a gift. But now they've been thanked. Right now, I met with a great group yesterday. And the thing I said to her, I said, call right now and say, Merry Christmas. Thanks for all you've done for us. And then hang up. I mean, how long does it take?
It's that simple.
It's that simple. It does, because we go to another point here, Pat. You just gave me an idea again. Because I don't like anything long. You know that. I mean, yes. I preach it. We just had a session last week, and you gave a great session on that. And I brought in the last week, and you helped me bring all the letters and cards we received. And it's a stack of them.
And what was our message?
Message is, what makes you different? Why do they want to pick out that letter? What makes you completely different from the rest?
As a charity.
As a charity. Because I said, everybody's doing it. And I said, the other thing is, don't make it long. We are not equipped. And you were with me this morning when we talked to a donor. What did he say about long letters?
He said, I discard them.
They discard them. And you know what? I want to tell you, I know you put a lot of hard work into it as a charity, and you give an awful lot to do that. But they're not reading it. So what good is it?
Right.
You got to make it. Our minds today are completely programmed to things are short. Zig Ziglar taught me a great thing many years ago when I do some of my motivational speaking. He says, you got to tell a story every 7 to 9 minutes because our minds are geared to commercials. And it resonated with me.
That is so true.
It is. And it's so different because, again, you go back to these stories that we're talking about, make them short.
Yes.
I mean, even if you're going to do a video, make it less than 3 minutes. And because it's perfect, because you'll watch it.
So a couple other things we're going to cover here are your 6 principles. Okay, your 6 principles for success, because you do motivational speaking. These are your superpowers, in terms of, you rev up a room. That's what you've done. You revved up players as a coach. You're revving up fundraisers, for us, friend raisers. And this is so important because there is no mission without the money. So before we hit the 6 principles, though, I heard you one time say, look, there's 3 ways you should spend your week. You should divide them into these 3 things. Can you just, because I think we shouldn't miss the basics and being brilliant at the basics. And so can you just touch on those just for a moment, and then we'll go into the 6 principles?
Well, don't think I just learned this overnight. I mean, I did this. I mean, and I did a lot of research. I had a great mentor in John Pierce who really helped me when I first got started. I went to Dartmouth for a week, actually, and learned. So some of these ideas, but I'm always looking to pick up ideas. But what I developed over the years for me is, okay, when I would go out and recruit, and I've actually been gone from home 21 days. And I would have 4 appointments a day, 4. And so my basic premise was on when I would go on these trips to do these things, 1/3 of my time, or the 3 things that I do,
yes,
basically 1 was thanking people. Just what we've been talking about. The second thing I would do is cultivate 1/3 of the time for helping me for the final. So I've come back for the people that I've cultivated and they've given a gift, I've thanked. Now I'm trying to find 30, and the next third is I want to go find new people. The next third is the people I found new from the year before, I'm going to ask for a gift. Yep. So you basically come in, you cultivate, then you ask those people, and you go back, and all the ones that gave you money, now you thank. And the percentages go up immensely when you thank people. I've had one charity, you talked about charities. I had one charity that did the advice that I gave them. They made the 7 phone calls. That month, with just thanking them, not asking for a cent, doubled what they'd taken in the year before.
Because they expressed gratitude and people responded to, they weren't feeling like a transaction. No. They were actually sensing this spirit, of gratitude and how they're making a difference.
They're appreciated.
And that is so important for people to miss, or not to miss. We shouldn't miss this point. And I want to hit it just a little harder, Erv. You said that when you go out, make sure you're not asking.
Yes.
That was really clear that don't ask. Can you hit that again? Because some people miss this, where the donor feels like a transaction or a target. Can you just elaborate just a little bit more on this point?
Well, I think one at a time. I'll give you a good example. I was with some people, and I since I'm in fundraising, I get asked questions. But a gentleman told me, he said, "I'm going to go see this person, and I'm going to go thank him. I'm going to ask for money." That's what he was going to do. He said, "I'm going to go thank him, but then in the same token, I'm going to ask him for money." So what is that person worth? He's worth, hey, the reason I'm here is I want money from you.
Right.
And you've got to separate those. You can't just do this. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble here, Pat. But
be careful. We're on tape here.
I know, but I'm going to get in trouble. But of all the thank yous that I have, one of the things that we had 70 people the other day. We were on a cast. We had people out here at DMF, and then there's some people that were online.
Yes.
And this is the question I ask. I ask all of them. So when we're talking about thank you, I said, when was the last time your church thanked you? Thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of this church with a phone call. I said, when was it? Out of 70, you know how many raised their hands? One church did it. Well, in the congregation, guess what? There's all these charities that are sitting in there fighting for money too.
Right.
And I'm saying, honestly,
the one you remember is the one that thanks you.
Shows you appreciation.
And then how they thank you is so important as well. So it's not a form letter, a transactional type of thing. It's actually quite sentimental. So you could see an actual written, handwritten thank you, or a personal voicemail from one of the board members or a volunteer of the organization.
Anybody that is with that organization. Well, what do you like? That's what I always say. What do you like? Well, then that ought to tell you the story of what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
And how you ask to it.
Exactly.
And don't be afraid to ask. People are afraid of no's. I can't ask for money. Why not? You got a passion for the organization, what you're doing, it's easy. And I find even when I'm working and talking to the boards, I find the boards don't even know what their fundraisers are doing.
Right.
They don't even go with them. I have less than 5% of all the last 4 years I've talked. There are less than 5% of the board members that have ever gone with their fundraiser. Well, then how do they know what they're doing? How can they help? They can even actually make a
well. And impact. In that regard, I've asked charities, how many times have they asked their board to help them? And I've gotten a lot of folks that have said, well, we really haven't. They just sort of expect them to help. Well, you need to ask your board to help you. Board members can do those same three things. They can thank people, and most every board member will enjoy thanking people. They can also cultivate by introducing, your charity to their friends, their network, their church, their organizations. And then they can, there are some that just like to ask. There are a few board members that are just fine with asking. So we've hit those three things really well today, Erv. I don't want to, I know that we could have a podcast on just one of the 6 principles, but I think it's really important that we sort of end on the 6 principles that you stand by, as a motivational coach that helps people reach much more of their potential that they've been given, because we don't even know our full potential. And that is why DMF and Impact are so thrilled that you're out there helping these groups reach their potential, because it means literally improving health and quality of life, because these charities are so remarkable in their current capabilities, but it's unfathomable, how much further we could go. So I think we should, with you helping them reach more of their potential, I think we should just touch on the 6 principles if we could, and sort of that be the end of our current segment. But we'll have more segments, because we want to illuminate these principles. And you did teach us one thing, that you need to hear something how many times?
16 times.
16 times before it becomes embedded. And then you got to practice these habits, that make people much more fully alive than they are today. And we have extraordinary capabilities. So will you hit the 6? Because they're designed to help people reach way more of their potential. And that's what we're here to talk about.
And these have stayed with me. This isn't something I developed. And that's what I tell, even when I go out and speak to some groups that are looking for different things. Basically, what I try to do is tell them, what's your philosophy? How did you develop it? I studied, and this philosophy has been developed over years and years. It's not just happened overnight. And I did it when I coached, and it's grown with me. But the 6 principles are really part of what I really totally believe, and anybody can do their principles what they want. I mean, 6 is maybe a little bit too long, but the first thing is commitment. Make a commitment to what you're doing. Productivity in life comes through commitment, not authority. And I think that's really important.
So true.
You do it. I mean, what I like about coming out here, this is a great example. You trust your people. You don't have to look over their shoulders. When you're working with people out here, and that's exactly what authority is all about. Authority can make you do something, no question. But if you do it because you love it, it's really important. My boss used to, at NDS, used to come and say, could you just come in and see me every 2 weeks so I know what you're doing? Well, that was a compliment to me.
Yes,
so I
the
think
highest.
It is. Yeah. The second thing is visualization. Where do you visualize people? You visualize them at their highest potential. And then what are you doing to help them get there? Powerful thing, and it's hard.
Very powerful.
Don't you think it's easy? It's very difficult because we always want we want to look better so we think we can keep someone down. It doesn't work that way.
Never.
Not at all.
No, that's not servanthood. That's not servant leadership.
It isn't at all. Leadership would be the third thing. These are in no special order, but leadership, and leaders have visions. And that's what I want to follow someone that has leadership that's going to take me down the right path.
Yes.
Make us feel better. Surround ourselves with even people that might be even better than us. And that's what I think about leadership. Because I always have felt that leaders, the great leaders, are people that you want to follow. So they have a vision. It's really powerful.
Yeah, and they do surround themselves with people that have other gifts, much greater gifts than them. And that's the most powerful organization.
Makes your organization much better.
Much
the fourth thing would be sacrifice. And I could really go a long time into sacrifice because I think no program is going to be a benefit unless you sacrifice. I've got some great stories. They're too long to talk about, but the sacrifice is brutal. I mean, as far as making an organization successful. And honestly, when I come out here, all the organizations I work, they don't work just their 40 hours a week. The successful people will make a sacrifice because, hey, I got this thing, and they don't have to tell you that they're going to stay an extra hour. They don't do it. They do it because, first of all, they love what they're doing. They want to make the sacrifice to help this organization become better. And so it is powerful.
For sure. It is powerful, and they love what they do, and they love serving others, not themselves. And I'm so blessed, here at DMF and Impact to have people like that, and even people that have gone on to other careers, that were here for a time, and they're bright lights in the region and beyond. And it's so incredible to surround yourself, as a leader with people that have gifts you'll never have. You will never have them. And they know that, they know your weaknesses too. And we have a great group here. And that's why it's so fun to have you, being a part of the DMF and Impact family. And you're a bright light in the community, just as every one of those charities are bright lights that you get to help them burn brighter, ultimately. Yeah. So go to your next one, because I don't want to get them all.
Simplicity is the next one. And we just threw this one in. I've been out here. I've actually been using just 5, and simplicity was out. But I threw it in because of the fact that we make things way too complicated.
We do.
We make it way too complicated. We should make it as simple as we possibly can, as easy as we possibly can, and we just make it go. It would go too far sometimes. When I started at NDSU as a coach, I had a book that would have made you sick. It was so thick. When I left NDSU, it was 1 page. 1 page. I mean, if you breathed wrong out there, I could have told you what you had to do. But you got to have confidence in people.
Right.
So make it as simple as you possibly can. That's why I go to the paragraph that I send out in the morning. It's because I want it simple and I want you to read it. If I have it 2 pages long, you're not going to read it, as we talked about earlier.
Right.
And the last thing is the most important one is standing up for what you believe in, spiritual soundness. In Proverbs 3:1-6, it goes like this. My son, never forget the things I've taught you if you want a long and satisfying life. Closely follow my instructions. Never forget to be truthful and kind. Hold these virtues tightly. Write them deep within your heart. If you want favor with both God and man and a reputation for good judgment and common sense, then trust the Lord completely. Don't ever trust yourself. In everything he'll do, he'll crown your efforts with success. And I'm telling you, I preach this. He has crowned you with success. Well, we'll say, I don't have this. I don't have that. But you know what? When you get those kind of things, you're not happy with them, or they're short-lived anyway. I've taken teams to the Bahamas, and you'll say, well, that's tough duty. Well, we didn't go to all these fancy places like Paradise Island and Cable Beach. We went into the inner cities of the Bahamas, and we would go work with charities. We would work with nursing homes. We would work with anybody that would have, the police would take us places, and we'd go. And these places didn't even have running water. And I said, and so the players that I took with me, when they went there, they could come back with anything but the clothes on their back. Nothing. I mean, that's it. The clothes on their back. So your suitcase was empty, unless they bought some souvenirs, obviously.
Right.
But they couldn't, because I said, now you see what I say. We gave away tennis shoes. When we put on a clinic for kids, Pat, 250 kids would come. We were outside on asphalt. Half of them didn't have shoes.
Wow.
Now, you know how hot it is?
Talk about a life's lesson.
These are lessons. How blessed
we are.
It is. I mean,
and the poverty in the world.
There is a lot of poverty out there. So and that's when I talk about success. I said, I don't think someday when I meet Christ face to face, he's going to say, well, how many wins did you have, Erv?
Right.
And I usually ask the question, how many of you know how many wins? And they'll say, well, I don't know. I said, well, thanks a lot inviting me. But I
always
said,
have some humor in there.
You got to have humor. Laughter's good.
What matters most?
Spiritual soundness, standing up for your beliefs. And that's what I say. I don't think Christ's going to ask me, like I said, how many wins you have.
And I think one of the things that's so critical that we got from today's podcast, you ended on truthfulness and kindness. And, what's the world in need of more? I mean, we're distracted by everything today. And, being spiritually sound, like knowing who we are, what we stand for, and why we're placed on this earth it's so evident, to you, right? Why you're placed here is to serve. And we're helping charities build teams that have a well-lit path that are very soundly built, on a structure of spiritual soundness, having a firm foundation, honoring truth, honoring kindness, honoring civility, and knowing why we're here to serve others. And that, that is what you're giving them in terms of even their technical skills, bringing back the 1/3 thanking, 1/3 cultivating, and 1/3 asking. But then doing so with this approach of truth and kindness, which is what you ended on with the soundness and spiritual soundness. And I think that's a real gift to ask people to discern that. Everyone should discern that. It's a free thing. You can discern how you want to see this, as others and people that we work with. But having an approach to life and to service, in terms of with this nonprofit as a fundraiser or with your kids or with, the world, it provides a real well-lit path if you ask the question. Because I think what we found is people aren't even asking the question. Is that what we found?
Totally. I mean, I think fundraisers are just afraid they don't ask for the order. And believe me, if you don't ask, you never get.
Right.
I mean, the biggest story that I've told, and many of you have heard this one, is I go and it's my first big gift that I ever got for NDSU. First big one. And I'm in with a couple, and I asked for a major amount of money. And I mean, I'm sweating it out because I really wanted to make this project work. And so basically they finally said, yes, I'll give you the money. Well, I was curious to why they gave. So basically what I did is I went back to that person a week later and I said, tell me, I'm learning right now. Why did you give? And this is what I tell every charity.
I love it.
Because you ask. Now, I'm looking at all these charities out there, and I'm telling every one of them, if you would have asked, they have been ahead of me to get that gift, you would have gotten the gift. But you didn't ask.
Yeah, that's why I love how, we have these gatherings monthly, with our groups, and I love how keep it simple. 7 asks a day, 7 thank yous, so you need to be out. And I remember we asked 2 or 3 years ago, how many major gift asks did you make in the last year? And after you got over the number 5, there wasn't anyone in the room. So, and major gift asks could be 500 for some groups, could be 10,000, whatever. But getting back to the basics and then knowing why you're here and how fulfilling it is, because the organization cannot survive without money.
That's right.
And so that really caps a wonderful interview today. And I know we'll have many more because each one of the 6 principles is worth spending an entire podcast on. But you've been incredibly, I think, illuminating today on the basics, and I appreciate you given the background of your life, because we are a creature of our experiences. That's what brought you here today, is all these wonderful experiences that you've had. Some were happenstance, some were completely guided, some were, I think directed completely by you or the Holy Spirit. And you've also had, and I'm just going to end with one last thing. You've been blessed with Linda. And I'd just like you to say I think people should know how important it is to have that.
You're going to make me emotional now. No, I've been blessed for that, because you got to have a partner that understands and lets you go. And I think that's what happened in my whole life. She didn't know anything about sports. She doesn't know much about fundraising now either, but she supports you, and she is a blessing because of the fact that I can do the things that I would feel blessed to do, and she allows me to do those things. And it's not always easy for a spouse to do that. And so I'm really appreciative of her being that. If I have a person of the year, it's always her, because of the fact that she puts up with a lot because I'm on the go. I mean, I feel so blessed. I'm 79 years old, almost. I'll be next month, but I feel like, and I have the energy to do it. And that comes from really the Holy Spirit and the other things, because I always say that life's what you're going to make it.
Yes.
It really is. And Winston Churchill said it the best that I've never forgotten. And I've used this an awful lot too, because you make a living by what you get, but you make a life by what you give.
No question.
And you can give in so many ways, by helping, volunteering, and doing it. And that's what's it. And that's why it's so fun to be a part of this organization.
Yeah. And the reason I wanted to mention Linda too is because we are who we surround ourselves with too. We become the average. And so you've been so blessed, because I know Linda and I think, wow, she's a servant leader too. She's extremely bright. She shares, her time, talent, and treasure. And even helping you, construct messages for those people we serve that are blessed to be on this list, to get a morning, a morning meditation. If we meditate every morning on something positive, guess what? Our outlook for the whole day is better. And so that is a real gift. And I didn't want to have a podcast with you without mentioning your better half. Yeah. And by the way, much better half. So we end this were you going to say something?
Well, I'm going to say that I think that's intelligence on my part then.
It is. I'll give you a little credit for that, for that. So we would like to end today's podcast. I would just like everyone on that's listening to perhaps meditate about people suffering, because there's a lot of suffering going on in the world. And if they could think while they're meditating about one thing they could do to be a bright light, like you are in the charities' lives, that like they could be in their those people around them that they see, or maybe even that they don't see every day, that are struggling. That if we meditated on that daily, the world would become much, much brighter. We're living in times that aren't so bright. And so, but it just takes each one of us to light the candle of someone else. So I would like to end with just that thought, that we all meditate on that daily, and that we do one nice thing for someone after we listen to this podcast, and perhaps make it into our daily habit. So we're going to have to listen to that 16 times, according to Erv and Zig Ziglar.
That's exactly right. Zig said it so well. I've been a fan of his forever, studied his, and I think he's made a difference. He's passed away, but he made a difference in my life. I mean, he does, and that's what you got to find. You got to find people that will make a difference in your life, and you can grow together. And I think and being a friend of somebody can lift each other. You can lift each other up, especially you can tell them anything. And I'm blessed with that.
And we will have a podcast just based solely on mentoring, and why it's important to be a mentor and have mentors, and then be a peer, have a peer group. And that's what we're building through the Institute. So we'll sign off now on the DMF podcast, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, Erv. Thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. I'd just like to say, not hard. You guys are all a blessing out here.
Thank you.